confidence is such a big part of the game, right? If you feel the confidence of the coaching staff and you feel confident as a player, you're usually going to play better. But if you don't have that confidence, and I've been there, I've had coaches that didn't believe in me, and you don't have confidence, you don't even want the puck, and you're not going to play your best.
That was Micki DuPont, a former Calgary Flame and 1,000-game pro, who is also the head coach of one of the best U15 teams in Western Canada at Edge Academy. And you are listening to episode 92 of the Up My Hockey podcast with Jason Podolak. Just watch me now.
Welcome to Up My Hockey with Jason Podolak, where we deconstruct the NHL journey, discuss what it takes to make it, and have a few laughs along the way. I'm your host, Jason Podolak, a 31st overall draft pick who played 41 NHL games, but thought he was destined for 1,000. Learn from my story and those of my guests. This is a hockey podcast about reaching your potential.
Hello there, and welcome back to the Up My Hockey podcast with Jason Podolak. I am your host, Jason Podolak, back here for another episode. And today you're in for a treat with Micki DuPont. Not sure if you recognize the name or not. Potentially, if you're from Western Canada, you may. He, as I said in the intro there, or the introduction after his quote, played over 1,000 pro games. That's crazy. Played up till I think he was 38 or 39 years old professionally in the top leagues in Europe. He was also an AHLer. He also played in the NHL, and so has obviously seen a lot, done a lot, been around a lot, and tons of knowledge from all the different places where he's been, different coaches that he's played for, different teammates that he's played with. So awesome to be able to have him on. He was also a former Kamloops Blazer, played 4 years in the Western Hockey League, where he got his start. So tons for him to offer you as a listener here in the next 90 minutes or so, just from his own personal experiences. But what is also super cool about why I wanted Micki to come on and to share his thoughts and philosophies is because he is the head coach at Edge Academy, which is a very acclaimed academy in this CSSHL out here in Western Canada. He's the head coach of the U15 prep team, and obviously is around these aspiring young players, and has to have development at the forefront, or else he wouldn't be in the position that he's in. He wants to protect the development of his athletes, and also be able to have a program that is earning respect, which means that is winning and competing. So he has a tough balance to find there. So I wanted to interview him for that reason, for what he's doing and his role that he has there with one of these academies. And also, he has players that are very, very good players, meaning he is a father of very good hockey players. We talk about his 06 son during this episode, and I bring up his 09 son, Landon, during this episode. Landon is by most accounts the number one available prospect in the 2024 draft if we were to look 18 months down the road. He's a first-year Bantam right now, which will be in his second-year Bantam next year if he decides to play there. And by many scouts that I've talked to, they feel that he will be the first overall pick. So Micki has that perspective as well. So he's not only a hockey coach, he's not only a hockey player that had over 1,000 games experience, but now he's also a hockey dad, and he's trying to protect the development of his son and navigate, or sons, I should say, and navigate the right path for them and how they're going about their business and all the pressures that come with that, especially being a high-level top prospect. So very, very interesting stuff today. Micki and I have played against each other over in, we played each other in the AHL. We missed each other at the junior level, but we did play against each other a couple times at the AHL level. And then we did play against each other in Germany for a year, where we actually had a final round matchup for the championship there in the German top division, and we came out on the wrong end of the stick there. So Micki won that war. So we do have our own personal history, but we've never had a conversation like this before. So this is the first time that I've ever sat down across the screen or across the table from Micki. So a lot of this stuff was new for us. We had no idea where we were going to cover or how it goes, as is typical of the Up My Hockey podcast scenario, and it was 90 minutes that just flew by, completely flew by. So once again, thank you for being here. Thanks for listening. And I do believe you are going to enjoy my conversation with the head coach of the U15 prep team at Edge Academy and 1,000-game professional, Mr. Micki DuPont.
Thanks for having me, Jay.
No worries. And I know that I just drug you out of the wrapper because you're on the fighting the winter elements coming back from Penticton.
Yeah, we were in Penticton for a showcase out there. I coached the Edge U15 prep team, and we bust back last night and got in at 4 a.m. But no, I was up. I got a couple hours sleep and then back to the school here.
Well, I was going to say, we were kind of joking over Messenger there that we should be well used to that, especially being old WHL guys. We learned how to sleep on a bus, so I'm not sure if you can do that at 45 as well as you could when you were 17. But we were masters at that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you have a little more room now as a coach. You get 4 seats to yourself instead of just 1.
Right. Yeah, we were laid out on the floor and bring the foamy on board and the whole 9 yards. So
yeah.
What was your closest trip there? I guess it would have been Kelowna for you guys in Kamloops back in the day, right?
Yeah, the travel was quite a bit. I mean, we had Kelowna, which was, I think, 2 hours. And then the next closest was PG, I think. Prince George was 6 hours away.
Yeah.
And then we would do, down to Spokane, Tri-Cities, 8 hours. Victoria wasn't in the league at that time. Vancouver wasn't in the league. And then we would only do 1 trip out east to Calgary and Prince Albert, all those places. So, lots of travel.
And that was back in the old 72-game schedule too, right? Like, we were on the bus a ton, and there was no one that really had great travel in that WHL. Like, maybe, I don't even know if those guys would just think that was great travel, but like, Seattle, Portland. Well, not really. There's just Seattle and Portland out there, and then they had to come to us and Spoke. That was like 5 hours away for them. So I mean, we were within our division, we were all over the place. But you kind of didn't even know any different really at the time. That's something that it didn't really even faze me.
Yeah. When you're young, you're just having fun and you're with the guys playing hockey. It's funny. Like, at the time, I remember old pro guys. I played in Kamloops, and the old pro guys would come back and they'd always say, "Oh, these are the best years of your life." And we would think, what are you talking about? If this is the best years of my life, doesn't sound very good. But looking back, those were unbelievable times, right? You don't have a worry in the world, and you're having fun playing hockey with the guys.
Yeah,
good times.
Yeah, perspective's amazing, right? As you get a little older and can look back on things. But yeah, man, we were just having fun. Like, the bus to me was actually a blast. Like, I never got car sick or anything. I could sleep on the bus, and that was before anyone had a phone or even knew that a phone could come on the bus. And we were playing cards or telling stories or having laughs and just hanging out. So that was really where teams were made, I think, and those bonds were formed, were all those hours on the bus back in the day.
Oh yeah, it's a lot different now. The kids now, they're on Snapchats and whatever they do. A little different.
Whatever they do, I love that. What do you mean? We have covered that a little bit here, and I try my best not to sound like a dinosaur when it comes to that. But you are coach of a team of young aspiring hockey players. I work with the Silverbacks of the BCHL and some other junior guys, and even pro coaches that I've talked to, and there's that fine line of allowing kids to grow up and be in the environment that that is their environment, what they're growing up in, but also trying to respect the idea and what we know intuitively as how to grow a team and how to grow bonds and how the phone can kind of get in the way sometimes, and sometimes it helps. How do you manage that, or do you even worry about it?
No, I mean, I don't think we can fight it. The phones are just a part of everyone's everyday life now. So it's not like you can. I don't think it's a good idea to take the phones away during daytime. We do take the phones away at night. We have, if we're in the hotel, we say, okay, phones into the coach's room at 10:30, and then we have a big bag. They just throw them in, and then we bring them to breakfast the next morning. But that's more just so they're not staying up all night watching videos or Snapchatting, whatever they want to do at night. So just making sure they get rest. But the kids have, there was no pushback on that. We talked to the kids about if we should take their phones away during games. Like once you enter the dressing room, should we check our phones in? And they're a mature group, and they agreed, like, no, I don't think we need to do that. So we trust them to, when they're in the dressing room, to kind of stay off their phones, and I think they're pretty good with it. Like we don't see them on their phones much in the intermissions. So.
Right. Yeah, interesting, right? Like, could you imagine back in our day if that would have been something that you'd walk in and you're playing some game on your phone or whatever between intermission?
Oh yeah,
it would have been.
Yeah,
it would have been not.
But it's and it's delicate, right? Because they can get into a lot of trouble. I mean, you've heard stories of phones in the dressing room, and kids take videos, and the wrong videos get out, and it's big trouble. So we try to educate them that way as well. All the trouble you can get into, and all the examples of people that have gotten in trouble. So
right.
Hopefully they're pretty smart about it.
Yeah. Well, it seems like it's totally like, I mean, I'll use the word culture, although maybe culture is not the right word, but it's like a team organization specific thing on how they want to handle it. And I think to your point, even asking your players, and you're talking about young players, but even at the junior level, pro level, it's usually a discussion amongst that group of how they want to handle that, because, there's some examples of teams that I know firsthand that have kind of changed their policy. Whereas like they would come in after practice and everyone, it's a quiet dressing room, no music's on, and everyone's like doing their phone thing, like you say, like on Snapchat or whatever. And they decided that wasn't really the environment that they wanted. So then they ended up deciding to, okay, we're going to leave our phones in the changing area, right? So after practice, when we come off the ice, the first thing we don't automatically do is go to our phones. So then we can, still be engaged with each other and, enjoy practice, or, give each other the raspberries about something. And so that was a decision that, teams can make on their own. And I don't know if there is a right or a wrong, but I know like the dressing room was such a special place, right? It was such a special, fun time. And to look across the room and to make eyes with somebody and to have those conversations is good. And if you are, locked in on your phone, or the guy next to you is, and you want to talk to him and you can't, it kind of does change the dynamic a little bit of what's going on in there.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe we should rethink our policy. Like, I don't think it's a lot to ask to, be away from your phone for the 3 hours of game time. Right. And then after we shower after the game, then go wild on the phone, do whatever you want. But up until that point, the dressing room, that's one of the best parts of hockey, hanging out with the guys and bonding in the dressing room and just talking with your teammates instead of heads buried in the phone.
Right. Yeah. Well, I didn't mean to have you say you were doing anything wrong, but that was like a discussion that I had with one of my guys. Was just like, well, what kind of team do you want? This is at the junior level, right? Like, what kind of team do you want? And like, what do you want to remember from this season, or what's really important to you? And like the words, family, or, togetherness, or, like that kind of, those types of words were coming out. And then it was like, well, where does that fit with guys, on their phone or interacting on that, if that's like a go-to. And then, so it was like this collective decision in this certain case where it was like, no, I think we're going to put them away. And like I said, it was on board, but I don't think there is a right or a wrong way, but I just know that it was so much fun there. And like that whole dinosaur thing, it's the best years of your life. Well, yeah, it would be, for sure. If you put some energy into the people next to you. Right. So anyways, neither here nor there, but I want to talk about you first of all, because we already talked about it a little bit, but my goodness, man, 1,000 games pro, came from the Western Hockey League, Kamloops Blazers, and that storied tradition there. And you played as a 16-year-old yourself. So, would love to talk about that and that whole experience for you. You would have been part of the Bantam Draft, I guess, at the time that had just come into existence. So, and maybe I'll just let the audience know that you now have hockey players that I know one of your boys has already gone through it, I believe, and then you have a younger one coming up that is very, very highly touted prospect for the draft in 2024. And how did that now reflect on you? So you're the 14-year-old or the 13-year-old playing hockey. Was the draft a big piece for you at the time, and how did that go for you?
Yeah, so back. So back then in Bantam, I feel like I was always a strong player. Like I usually played up an age group, but I was always smaller. So I think that kind of hurt me, obviously, back in those days. And I was drafted in the 12th round of the Bantam Draft, and but I ended up sticking with Kamloops as a 16-year-old and playing there for 4 years. So that's a big lesson for all the kids. I love to tell that story to everybody when draft time comes around. Everybody wants to get drafted first round, second round, but if you end up getting drafted in the 10th round, like it's not the end of the road, or if you don't get drafted at all, right? And then the flip side, if you do get drafted high, I mean, you've seen it, Jason. Like how many high draft picks haven't turned out, right? For whatever reason, maybe they get complacent or whatever it is. So I love telling those stories just from my experience. Like the draft is just kind of a blip in time, but there's a lot of work to be done after the draft, and there's a lot of shuffling and kind of jobs that can be stolen, and it's not the end of the road.
No, yeah, I mean that is, we all tend to think like about 6 inches in front of our face, and I know that our sons and daughters definitely do too, right? And that is the biggest thing for them in their lives. And I mean I think we get it, we understand it, but to your point, it's definitely like a moment in time, and whether you get drafted, don't get drafted, go high, don't go at all, the next day is a new day, and nothing changes, right? I mean, like you got to still have that same approach, you know what I mean, to whatever it is, your development and building your passion for the game and all that good stuff. So yeah, we want the feathers in our cap, right, and the recognition, but it doesn't mean a damn thing. I mean, especially at the Bantam level, It's not a contract in hand. It's not, it's not a higher signing bonus. It's not anything really. You have to be good enough at 16 to play. I mean, whether you're a first rounder or a 12th rounder, that's what they're going to look at when you're 16, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, guys like you that have played pro as well, you've seen it at the pro level, guys get drafted in the NHL and they might never make that next step and sign a pro contract. So there's, just every year is so big on development. Every year you have to be getting better because other guys are. So you don't want to fall behind.
Yeah, and I mean I've said that on the show before. I mean roughly 33% of the WHL, give or take the year, is usually non-drafted players. I mean, and that totally makes sense to me too, right? I mean, when you're drafting 14-year-olds, right? To your point, you were smaller. Well, you didn't end up small. I mean, you're 5'10", it seems like, but you mean probably at 14, you weren't a towering physical force, right? So it's hard for a player who's a little bit undersized when they're physically not developed yet to challenge with some of these kids at 14 who are already 6 foot, 180 pounds, right? And I think that's one of the biggest problems with having the Bantam draft be a Bantam draft and not a first-year midget draft is you're not allowing this an extra 12 months of growth, because some of these big bodies, and I think that's probably, I would say that's the biggest thing at the Bantam age is like you see these big physical specimens and they're dominating, they're doing great, but a lot of these other players haven't caught up yet. And so when they do catch up, like those guys that looked really great, now they're not that great anymore, because they're not just winning on size anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny. I mean, when you talk about projections, which a lot of the draft is, right? Like these scouts are projecting what you're going to be. Well, the WHL scouts are projecting what you're going to be at 16, 17, 18, 19. And now I think they realize a little more than back in the day. If you're an undersized guy, is there room for growth there? Now skill and speed are a much more important part of the game. So they look at that, and then they look at some guys that have grown already. Is that the only reason that they're dominating out there is because they're bigger and stronger than everybody? Like, can they actually play the game and think the game? If everybody else catches up to their size, are they still going to be good players? So it's a tough job they have projecting and picking the right guys.
Yeah, tough, totally tough, and that's why it's a completely inaccurate science, right? It's you do your best with what you know, and the other thing that comes into play too is that late birthday players. I mean, it's crazy how few late birthday players get drafted when you look at the whole draft as a whole. the entirety of the draft. It's usually like the January, February, March babies that are the ones that get looked at more. And to me, the only thing that really makes sense there is because, I mean, they've had an extra 10 or 9 months to a year of growth, right? Like when you think of like your boys, and I look at mine, like a year is an immense amount of time, right? Like, and even how they look as players, let alone how much they've grown, right? So it's tough to really extrapolate that out as a scout. You know what I mean? Like, how do you consider that? How do you gauge where's this kid going to be in 10 months? And I guess that's the big guess, right? You never do know where it's going to be. But I've been talking about that lately on the show there, and I would really wish that the WHL would push to the Bantam, to the midget age draft. I think that would do a lot for the families. I think it would stop the rush to get moving so quick, the extra money that gets spent and all that stuff, and allow these kids to develop a little more and not feel the pressure even at such a young age. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree because, so like you said, my older boy, he's an 06. So he was part of that WHL draft that was pushed ahead because of COVID. So I saw with that draft, if they would have had that draft at the normal time in May, it would have been a completely different draft. So in between May, when the draft was supposed to be, and December, when they actually did the draft, there was a lot of shuffling, right? Because the scouts had an extra, 6, 7, 8 months to view those kids and kind of see how they've grown in the last 8 months. And COVID kind of threw a wrench into all of that, but you kind of saw some kids developing more, some not so much. And a lot of kids, grew physically during that time. So it kind of changed the whole outlook of the draft, I guess, for the scouts. Yeah. But I do agree. I think it is so early. Even at that age, like second year Bantam, there's some kids that have gone through puberty, some that haven't at all. So it's kind of a tough age to do a draft. I think maybe 1 year later, like they do in Ontario, would be beneficial.
Yeah, everywhere else, right? USHL does it then, QMJHL does it then, OHL does it then, right?
Yeah.
WHL's the only one, and I think it's because of the competitiveness between them and the AJHL as well, but mostly the BCHL, right? Like they're in a war for these players early, and the earlier they can get their claws into them, these WHL teams. Yeah. And again, we're both WHL alums, right? I think it's a great league and everything else, and they're doing the best to protect their product. But I think that is like that seems like that's the biggest motivating factor to keep it where it was. That COVID year you spoke about, like, God, that would have been the perfect time just to like have that gap. Instead of doing 2 drafts in 1 year, just allow those 06 kids to be drafted as first-year midgets, let them finish their season and then move it to a first-year midget draft. But anyway, they missed it.
Yeah, like you said, the NCAA teams, they can reach out December 1st of your grade 10 year, right? So if they did delay that WHL draft, then I think it would be a lot more competition for the WHL as well, because the NCAA teams would be reaching out, and
for sure.
But this way they get ahead of it, and they can hopefully sign their guys before NCAA teams can even reach out.
Yeah, there's such a trickle down effect though. Like, I think because like there's so many parents. Maybe a good time to bring up Landon. Landon, I've heard, and I have never seen him play yet. I've only seen a couple video clips. So unfortunately, I really do want to see him play. But I've heard from a lot of people that he's by most accounts the best available 09. If the draft was to happen right now, he'd probably go first overall. So I bring that up. One, that's super cool, and I want to talk about that, being a hockey dad for somebody that's been recognized like that. But for a lot of these other families that maybe aren't quite as highly rated, they're trying to position themselves as a first-year Bantam to be on the prep team in the second year, right? You're part of an academy system right now, and same thing happens at the BC hockey level in the AAA, AA. But there's this emphasis now on the Bantam age group, and now as young as 12 years old, to where are we going to be for this draft, which now it brings in all this more craziness and more money, and kids leaving home early. And so I just think that it's definitely a trickle down scenario from having them be drafted as 14-year-olds.
Yeah, it's there's so many options now. You have the CSSHL, the Zone League in BC. We call it the Alberta Elite League in Alberta. And then now this HSL, JPHL. so many options for kids to play in. But yeah, you're right. I mean, most hockey families, they want to position themselves well for the Bantam draft, right? So getting on the right team, getting the right exposure, which is important. But I think even at this level, it should still be about the development, right? Like, you have to be getting better. There's no sense going to the best team, the best Bantam team, and maybe you're behind the rest of the group and you're not developing, you're losing confidence. Like, so we always we talk about it a lot here at Edge. Like, we try to put the kids in the best position for them to succeed. So that's playing with a peer group that's similar skill level, size level, all that, because there's no sense, if you're for example, let's say you're 5'2" and you're playing with a bunch of kids that are 6 foot already. Like, I just think you're probably going to be losing confidence. You're not going to be getting the puck touches, and your development's not going to be where it should be. So sometimes that means maybe playing Bantam AA or U15, and then moving up to U15 prep the next year, or Bantam AAA. But it's too bad, because I'm sure you see it as well. Everybody's in a rush and everybody wants to get there. And there's some kids that are ready as first years, and some need that extra year. And there's many examples of kids that kind of, take their time. Like, there's a great example here of Jake Sanderson. I'm sure everybody knows Jake Sanderson, playing in the NHL now. And I think it was Bantam. This was way back, but he actually made the Bantam AAA team as a first year. And his dad, Jeff Sanderson, played in the NHL a long time. He told the coaches, we just don't think he's ready. We would rather him play a year of Bantam AA, get the puck touches, develop, touch the puck lots and be the guy. And so they did that. And then he moved up to Bantam AAA the next year. And now he's in the NHL, fifth overall NHL pick. So pretty cool example there.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. It's actually, that's wild you mentioned that, because that was a question in my Facebook parent group last week. Just, would you rather play AAA in a limited role or AA, and kind of play in all situations? What do you think's better? And obviously each individual is different from a player perspective, but there's very few that actually that opt that way, that have made a AAA team, right, and then will opt out of it, because they think it might be a little bit too low on the depth chart. But
and different if it's your first year Bantam too, right?
Yeah.
Because then you can move up the next year. But as a second year Bantam, I mean, everybody wants to play that Bantam AAA as a second year, which is understandable. Yeah.
What about, I think that's from these younger ages, from a minor hockey perspective, I think it's a different discussion too. And the discussion starts to change once you become major junior or junior A eligible, right? So now 16 years old is the youngest you can play in either one of those leagues. Some guys step in and play as 16-year-olds and play regular minutes, but oftentimes those 16-year-olds, no matter how good you are, and Jerome McGinley is a prime example of back when I was playing against him, he played 40 games or something that year, 44 games, right? He was a healthy scratch for a vast majority of them. Some games he didn't play till the second period was his first shift. And for Jerome, that worked out real well for him. He liked that. I mean, he liked being around that environment. He liked being able to practice with those guys, those Memorial Cup guys. But I know a lot of kids would have been broken by that, and they should have been playing AAA midget, right, and getting puck touches. So, how was that experience for you? As a 16-year-old, looks like you had pretty good numbers there when you went there. Did you get a lot of ice time, and there was no worrying about getting in and out of the lineup?
Yeah, so I think it's all about the situation you're in, right? I was really lucky. I came into Kamloops at the right time. They were rebuilding. They had just lost Nolan Baumgartner, Jason Holland, Aaron Keller, Jason Strudwick, Brad Lukowicz. So
all NHLers, by the way, for those listening.
Yeah. So it was perfect for me, and Robin Reguer was the other 16-year-old defenseman on that team, and so we got to come in, and they kind of let us play and lived with our mistakes, let us live and make mistakes and learn that way. So we were really lucky we got to play. But same thing, I remember I wasn't the top 1980 born kid in the age group at all. But there were many other really strong 1980 born kids that played as 16-year-olds that year, but they were on strong teams and they didn't play much, and their maybe development path didn't go quite the way mine did. So yeah, it's all about being in the right situation and just that opportunity to play and make mistakes and learn that way was huge.
So is that become part of your overall development philosophy then? Like, would that be what you would suggest for your boys, like to make sure you play and not rush into a league?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's huge. Like you mentioned, like even the junior level now, like at 16 years old, are you ready to play? Should you play another year of midget? 17-year-old, same thing. Like everybody views it as, if you're playing midget as a 17 and 18-year-old now, everybody views it like, oh, you're going nowhere. But I don't agree with that at all. Like if you're playing midget as an 18-year-old, maybe you just need that extra year to develop and play lots, get puck touches, dominate, and then you can move into the BCHL or AJHL, wherever it is, as a 19-year-old.
Yeah. There's nothing. You still have 2 years left of eligibility for going the college route. You know what I mean? And that's very, very rarely do kids leave earlier than that. And those are the special ones, right? So I mean, that's really the timeline. But you're right. There's a stigma around that, right? If you're still playing at 17 and you haven't really gotten anywhere, then maybe you're not. I mean, it all depends on what you're offering the team, and I guess where your level of play is at. But I guess the other thing is too, when you're that 16-year-old and you want to play there, because now you're thinking about the NHL draft as your 17-year-old year, right? So like you've had your way around. I think there's an interesting argument for that too, because you get the league a little bit more, right? You understand like what the demands are. You've been able to practice around those players and everything else. And now as a 17, you're maybe not having those those rookie tendencies and uncertainties and everything else, right? So you're a little more ready. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's no perfect route. I think like being a 16-year-old that's there, as long as you're playing, enough. It doesn't have to necessarily be regular minutes. I do think that environment is probably pretty healthy. Every organization's different, but
like even like you mentioned with Jerome, like he didn't play much as a 16-year-old, but just being in that environment, learning from those veteran players and practicing against them, that was for sure beneficial for him.
Yeah. And then you went on to have like jeepers, 88-point season, led the team in points as a defenseman. That's like you're channeling your inner Roman Yossi there and Cale Makar. That's hard to do. So I mean, you had a great career there, and then it also looked you got drafted in 2000. Like, how did that happen as a 19-year-old? Did they change the rules there, or what?
No, I mean that still happens now. Sometimes 19-year-olds, like maybe they get passed over as 17, 18-year-olds and just have a great season as a 19-year-old, and a team takes a chance on them, signs them, and gets them into the minors right away, or they don't sign them right away and they come back to the WHL as a 20-year-old. But yeah, I was lucky enough. I had a great season there that year. Well, I was lucky. I had 3 really good coaches in the WHL. I had Ed Dempsey, and then Mark Abscheid, and then Dean Evison, who's now coaching in Minnesota with the Wild. And Dean was great for me. He let me play. He let me play with confidence. He let me make mistakes. But he wasn't too structured. I mean, we did play with structure, but he let me take chances, and he wasn't the guy that was like, our defensemen have to stay on the blue line. He let me jump up and be offensive, and I had a good year and got drafted by Calgary and ended up signing with them right away. And then played in St. John, New Brunswick was their farm team. So I was there for 2.5 years, I think, and then got traded to Pittsburgh's farm team. And then off to Europe. I ended up playing in Europe for 14 years.
Yeah, man. Like you're there.
You think you're. Everybody else.
And then you came back though too, and that was when you had your. Well, I mean, let's not jump too far ahead. So I mean, you had So you got drafted as a 19-year-old. I think now, honestly, Micki, I think that you're eligible for 2 years, and then I think you become like a free agent. So like I don't think they're eligible for the draft anymore. I think that you can still get signed, obviously, but I don't think you're draft eligible. I think you have a 17-year-old year, and then I think if you get passed over there, then they're still eligible for as 18-year-olds, and if they don't get drafted there, then I think it's just a free agent signing. I think now, but don't.
No, there were some 19-year-olds that were drafted last year. I remember there's a guy, Ben King. He's actually from Vernon.
Right.
I don't know.
He got signed. I thought he got signed, not drafted.
No, he got drafted in the 4th round to Anaheim.
Oh wow!
And he had a great year last year. I think he scored 52 goals as a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
So he got drafted. Yeah. So he's back in Red Deer.
So maybe they still have the option to draft him, but they also, if you haven't been drafted, you can just be signed as a free agent too.
Yeah,
I think.
No, for sure. Right. Yeah.
So then that drafted. So as far as an NHL team would be concerned, they would take. I shouldn't say waste, but they would use a draft pick on that older player, but then that would buy them the time to decide whether they want to sign them or not. Right.
Yeah,
and then the other way, you're just going right out. You're giving them a pro contract. So yeah, that makes sense.
And then they don't have the risk of losing that player to somebody
right.
else, obviously.
Yeah. Take a short break from my conversation with Micki DuPont to remind you about what my hockey is and what my hockey wants to do. And what does that mean? That means that Up My Hockey is built on the philosophy that mindset matters. That mindset is the greatest gift that your athlete will be able to use, and it's also the greatest gift that the person that is your athlete will be able to use forever. I believe that a more well-rounded, more diverse, more resilient human will give you a more resilient, diverse, well-rounded, proficient, efficient, enthusiastic hockey player. So that's really what Up My Hockey is all about. Up My Hockey is about growing the person and the hockey player at the same time to give them the skills to be able to manage anything, whether it be being benched on the 4th line or whether that means in 15 years they're at an office job that they don't like and they need to work with a coworker. I do believe that many of the concepts that we discuss here at Up My Hockey and the tools and strategies and tips that I give them are things that they can use forever. Not only will it help them manage and conquer the season that they're in, but it'll also help them strive in the seasons down the road and also in whatever avenues of life may take them. So that's the philosophy, right? The philosophy is how do we empower young men and women to be their best? And I do believe that those skills, those life skills, those mindset skills aren't just applicable to hockey. They're applicable to academics. They're applicable to any occupation that you want to be. It's applicable to just being your best. So we use these foundational principles from a voice like mine that's been there, that's done that, that's experienced, that knows where they want to go and has been in the dressing rooms they want to be in. And I'm able to speak to them and to talk to them about these concepts from a platform and a theme that they are passionate about, which is hockey, right? They want to be great hockey players. They want to thrive. They want to impact hockey games. They want to move on in their hockey careers. So because they have this internal, intrinsic motivation from this sport that they enthusiastically love, now they're able to listen to some of these ideas and concepts with different ears, right? Through a different lens. And more often than not, these things stick. And these things stick with them and they're able to use them. And this is the greatest opportunity to make a difference on a competitive landscape. I see differences and changes in a weekend with some of the concepts that we discuss. I hear calls from coaches and from parents saying it's a completely different player. Well, guess what? It's not a completely different player. It's the exact same set of skills. It's the exact same ability to stick handle and to skate backwards and to skate forwards and to read the play, but they are having a different approach to how they're going to show up or how they're going to thrive and inside the game. Instead of just surviving, they are getting involved in the game differently. So it's tons of fun, right? This Up My Hockey mindset approach. I get to see huge gains and big differences in players and in teams. And part of what Up My Hockey is it provides a program called the Peak Potential Hockey Project. This is my signature program, which is now over 16 months old. There's been over 200 players that have taken the course, whether it be through a team or whether it be as an individual. And yeah, I couldn't be more excited about it. It's 4 weeks. Each week has a different theme. I have teams taking it this year, and they are loving it, and the individuals are loving it. So to get to the point, there is a guided mission of the Peak Potential Hockey Project. That means that you can be an individual athlete anywhere on earth. If you like hockey and if you want to get better at hockey, whether you're having confidence issues or not, this program is for you. This is for high achievers, period. Do you want to maximize your potential? If the answer is yes, then this program is for you. If you're actually down in the dumps and struggling with confidence and struggling to find your way right now, then maybe even more so it's for you. But please don't wait for it to be down in the dumps time, to be slumping time, to be on the fourth line, to be the healthy scratch. You do not have to wait for turmoil to take this. I always say prepare for the storm before the storm comes. So if you are kicking butt and if you are rolling, this is an opportunity to take this stuff, to learn these new skills, to push even higher, to find new levels of excellence, and to also be prepared for when times may not be as good as they are right now. So the Peak Potential Hockey Project, if you're going to do the guided mission, I have another mission coming up on January 14th. So what a great gift for your athlete. What a great gift for somebody in your life to take this guided mission. The guided mission means that you will get 4 coaching calls with me. At the end of each week, there will be a group coaching call in the guided mission for those that are involved in the course. And we go over the material and we get personal, and we start making sure that you are applying and executing and being accountable to what is happening inside the program. It is my most popular option, and that's why I'm bringing it up. It is a rotating option. It happens once every 2 months or so. Once every 3 months, I offer a guided mission. So the next one is January 14th. So that is open to you, and it's open right now if you want to register. The other thing is there is spots open for teams after Christmas. Christmas of 2023, depending when you're listening to this episode. If you want to take the second half by storm, get your teams involved in something that's super cool, that'll get you guys ready for the playoffs and for the push, then I do have some openings for some teams, whether that be the U15 level or the U18 level. By all means, reach out to me and we can sort something out. So thanks for sticking with me. Up My Hockey is about the development of the person and the development of the player, and you can honestly get gains that you can't anywhere else inside that 4-week program, and something that will stick with these players much longer than power skating or a hockey school will. So reach out to me. You can reach out to me through any social media channel, through upmyhockey.com. The website, the contact form is there. Social media on Instagram. You can also reach out to me on YouTube. I have my YouTube channel running where this program is also playing. And love all the interactions. Love the people reaching out, saying thanks and writing the reviews. Keep them coming. But if you want to take part and actually work on your mindset, that's how to do it. Upmyhockey.com for the Peak Potential Hockey Project. Now back to my interview with Micki DuPont. So you go, so what was that experience like then, your first, I don't know, like let's talk about your first pro camp there. So you sign with Calgary, you get to go to training camp as a later, as an older guy, almost pro ready, I guess. I mean, that was really, you signed and then you signed and then you went pro the next year, correct?
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
So I got drafted, went to camp, and then signed right after camp.
Cool. How was camp? You remember?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, I remember it a little bit. I mean, it's kind of a blur, but I was just young and just having fun. Didn't really think too much about it, right? But I always kind of had that attitude, like starting even when I was young. Like I said, getting drafted in the Bantam Draft in the 12th round, you have to have that attitude, like, you know what, I'm going to show everybody else that they made a mistake, and I'm better than that. I'm going to prove them wrong, and I'm gonna out battle their first rounder, second rounder, third rounder, all that. So always had that attitude. And I had Jim Playfair as a coach in the minors that year, and he was great. He was a D-man when he played, so he was really good at developing the defenseman and working with the D. And we actually won the Calder Cup that year, so that was a great experience too. Really good team.
Wow.
Yeah.
You won the Calder as a first year?
Yeah.
That's
not the Calder Trophy, but the
Yeah. The Calder Cup. The Calder Cup. Yeah, no,
Calder
fair
Cup. Yeah,
enough.
big difference.
So when you're talking about these coaches that had an impact on you, you've mentioned a couple times like that you were able just to play, that you were able to make some mistakes and kind of learn on the go. Do you feel that that's pretty critical, important for all players, regardless of age?
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about my coaching now, like we're pretty demanding as coaches, and we like to hold the kids accountable. But at the same time, I knew when I played, confidence is such a big part of the game, right? If you feel the confidence of the coaching staff and you feel confident as a player, you're usually going to play better, and you're playing looser and having more fun. But if you don't have that confidence, and I've been there, I've had coaches that I felt didn't believe in me, and you don't have confidence, you don't even want the puck, and you're not going to play your best. So really try to get that confidence in the players. And a lot of that comes on the players, right? Like they have to earn the confidence in practice by just doing things right, like having the good habits and passing on the tape, getting those passes, shooting hard, skating hard, and then the confidence comes, right? So you kind of earn the confidence yourself that way.
Yeah. I mean, I find with what I do now, being the mental performance coach for teams and players, it's the ability to handle the mistakes, right? Because a lot of them don't have the toolbox to do it, right? And if you're in an environment where maybe it's not as allowing, right, as you're saying, with mistakes, and you're with a coach that, I mean, you get benched when you make one. Boy, it's hard to change that storyline of what a mistake means for players, right? Like they can't make one, and now when they do make one, they know there's these huge consequences. It's tough. I mean, it's a tough game because you don't know who's going to be your coach, and you don't know where you're going to be, and these players need to be able to handle it and have some way to deal with it. Is there some type of a storyline with your group there at Edge about what mistakes are and what they should mean to the players?
Yeah, I mean, we want to, and that's what's tough about this age group, right? It's kind of like that Bantam AAA or Bantam Prep, whatever you want to call it. It's kind of the first year of real competitive hockey where, there's a lot of pressure on the kids. All the kids are thinking about the WHL draft. They all put a ton of pressure on themselves. And the programs want to win as well, right? So you want the players to play the best they can and learn from their mistakes. So there's a lot of teaching that goes on when they do make those mistakes, but you definitely have to be delicate with it because you don't want them to feel like, oh God, if I make a mistake, I'm gonna be stapled to the bench. And then they're not playing confident, they're not playing loose, they're afraid to try plays. So you have to coach delicately that way, I guess you could say. But at the same time, letting them know, like, hey, next time look for this instead of this.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, I don't know how you're, like, my philosophy with the players is like, I will only really criticize effort is my biggest thing. Like you will definitely find your way to the bench if you can't work hard. Like that's kind of a non-negotiable for me when I coach. And then the other part is just in the D zone, right? Like that's where I coach structure, right? Like where you kind of need to be and how you need to respond. But when you got the puck, at least I try and let guys be free in the offensive zone and teach more concepts over structure, right? Like concepts of how to play the game and to let them be creative and let them have fun and let them enjoy the puck. And yeah, I mean, if because we've all been there, right? Especially back in our dinosaur era, like where you would try like, a toe drag or a saucer pass through the middle and maybe it doesn't work out. And all of a sudden that's the stupidest play ever. And you're never going to see the ice again when maybe that was the right play. It just didn't work. Like I hate to take that away from kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's funny you say concepts, like there's lots to talk about that, right? You want the kids, working hard and having the right habits, but you don't want them to be robots. You have to go there. You have to go there. So that's where the concepts come in, right? Like third guy high, like, or two guys hard on the forecheck, third guy's reading. But those first two guys, like we want you going hard and just in the offensive zone, be creative and make plays. You don't want to take away their creativity.
Yeah, I know 100%. They like, yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, that's like a concept for me would be like being above the puck, like third guy, making sure he's above the puck and above their high guy in the zone, right? Instead of being like a 2-1-2 or a 1-2-2 or something like that. It's more like, where are you hearing me at all, Micki?
No, I can hear you, but you're breaking up.
Do you want to, I can cut this all out, so don't worry about it. But, oh, there you are. This is a new one here. Remove. Add to stream. I got you in a new feed now. Yeah, that sounds way better now.
Yeah, my computer was kind of crapping out. There we go.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, awesome. That sounds much clearer now.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
But yeah, back to your point, you don't want them. Yeah, it's funny. Like, I find that sometimes too, especially at this level. Like, you want to win. You do have some set plays, but you want to tell them, you know, this is the set play, but we have to read as well. Like, if this is the play that we're passing to that guy and it's not there, well, then we just play, right? Read and react.
Yeah.
You can't just, you have to do this. And then, yeah.
I was joking with my boy. He's on a AA zone program here, and we were joking with the coach, or I was joking with the coach, because they have this face-off play that works quite well, and or has worked quite well. But it's funny because sometimes, like to what you just said, like the end of the play is to hit this guy in the slot, and sometimes there's a guy standing right beside the guy in the slot, right? And yet a player will grab this puck and like throw it right to the guy in the slot, and that's just when like. You know, like that's when the hockey IQ is obviously just showing on these guys that it's just like, I mean, that's not the play anymore. You know, like it's not there.
But the kids are so literal, right? Like they listen well, and if this is what I have to do, that's what I have to do.
Yeah, it's funny, and that's the individuality of like you doing your job well is probably like understanding those ones that are super literal and just want to be, you know, to please you, and then like to allow them like, well, no, we have to still think. It's and then some that don't want to do the play at all, right? They all want to do their own thing, and it's fun working with these. Well, regardless of any age, right? Like you got the 17, 20 individuals on there, and they all respond to stuff differently, and they all hear you differently, and you're trying to get the best out of each and every one of them. It's a bit of a puzzle.
Yeah, they're all different characters.
Yeah. So you talk about your first NHL game, because you got called up there your first year. You had two games in the NHL. I think we all remember our first game. What was that like for you, getting that phone call that, I mean, you've really been waiting your whole life for? You're going to be an NHLer. What did that feel like?
Yeah, it was I mean, a little different than most of the stories you hear, I guess. Our season had ended in St. John. We didn't make the playoffs, and they had called up maybe 5 guys to Calgary for the last week or two of their season, because they were out of the playoffs too. So it was more of just a carrot for the 5 guys that got called up, you know, be around the NHL guys, practice, and get into the lineup if you can. But I was a D-man from age 10, maybe. I was a D-man. And then my first NHL game, they put me on forward. So, and I'm not going to say no, right? I was just, just tell me what you want me to do, and I'll get out there and play. But it's funny, I got into the lineup because Jeff Shantz, who coached at Edge with me last year and the year before, I got in the lineup because he was having a baby, so he wasn't playing that night, so I got to play. So I always tell him thank you for that. But it was fun. We were up in Edmonton. The game was in Edmonton. I think it was the second last game of the year, and Edmonton had to win to have their playoff hopes alive still. So even though we were out of the playoffs, it was a great win for us because we crushed Edmonton's hopes of making the playoffs. So,
right.
So it was a big, exciting win for us.
Well, how was that?
And it was fun.
So you hadn't never played forward in your
Yeah,
life,
it was fine. I mean, I always joke the smart guys play D. But it was fun. Yeah, I mean, I played right wing, and I was just kind of up and down the wing, hoping the other team didn't score, and just put the puck deep and try to forecheck hard. And yeah,
Right.
it's kind of a blur looking back at the game. But I remember my parents drove up. It was in Edmonton, and I'm from Calgary, so my parents drove up for the game. So that was special to have them there, obviously. And yeah, and then the next night played my second game at home in Calgary against Vancouver, and that was a lot of fun. I got to play D that game, so that was good.
Good. Well, that's an interesting thing. I mean, it's hilarious that you bring that up now, and I don't know if you know the Wendell Clark story. Did you know that he was a defenseman in junior?
No, I didn't know that.
He never played forward, right? So he played defense all through his major junior, like even as the world junior guy, like he was a defenseman, and then he got drafted first overall as a defenseman, and he showed up in Toronto, and his name was on the dressing room door as a forward. First overall pick, and they changed him into a left winger. He'd never played it before. So when I interviewed him, I never knew that. I was blown away. Like, you imagine doing that now to like Connor McDavid or whoever, right? Oh, you're not your position. Let alone like, I mean, there's first year Adam parents that lose their brains when like Johnny's not a centerman and he got shifted to left wing, right? Like it's nuts how people get so bent out of shape about what position they're playing in. But do you think it's a good thing? Like I'm a pretty big advocate of having kids experiment, especially if they want to, right? And even sometimes if they don't want to, just so they understand the game better. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I agree. Even with my kids, like, I think it's great for them. My older boy, actually, he's an 06, so he's been a forward since about age 10, and they had a couple D-men get hurt at the U18 level here, and the coach was kind of in a jam. You're down to 4D. Does anybody know how to play D? And he puts his hand up, and I'll play D. So he's been playing D for the last 5 weeks, and he's doing well. There's some things he struggles with, like the gap control and the pinches and things like that. But good at making the plays and joining on the offense, obviously. But just seeing the game from a different perspective as well. And then when he goes back to forward, hopefully implementing those things into his forward game. Like, okay, D-men are under pressure on the forecheck. I got to work hard to get open for them because I know what that experience is like. Just little things like that, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. How to get open, what's uncomfortable in that position. I've many episodes ago, I told the story about me buying goalie equipment after I was done. I retired relatively young, right? Like 10 years before you at 30, and I still wanted to play a little bit. I was here back at home, but I say this with as much humility as possible, but I was too good for the beer league here at the time, right? Like to have any fun doing it, right? But I was always interested in goalie. So I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to buy some goalie equipment. I know I can go 110% when I'm out there. No one's going to get mad at me, right? And I have no idea what I'm doing. So I turned into a goalie for like 3 or 4 years, and it was awesome to like just learn the game from that aspect and what was difficult to do. And like the things that I learned, like that I could have applied then as a forward and as a goal scorer, like shooting through traffic or like when sight lines are a problem or what motion is difficult to do in certain situations. Like it completely, like it was a whole new world, right? Like learning that. So, defense to forward, same thing. Like you can learn some stuff that's hard for D-men to do as a forward, right? You can institute that on your one-on-ones. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm a big advocate of that. And it just makes you more versatile. I mean, at the end of the day,
it's funny you mentioned the goalie thing. Like we stop practice sometimes and we'll talk to our goalies. If we're doing a 2-on-1 drill or we'll stop and talk to the goalies. Like, okay, for a goalie, what's hard for you here? What's harder if the shot comes from here or if the D-man takes the pass? And then it's good for the kids to hear that from the goalie, right? Like the goalie says, yeah, this is hard for me when I have to slide over and take this shot or whatever it is. And then the kids kind of think like, oh, okay. Or at least I hope they think, okay, that's hard for the goalies, so I'm going to do that.
Yeah, no, good for you. That's great. And to involve the goalies as well. My goodness, like that was the other thing I noticed. And I mean, I love playing defense now too. Like I never go out with the boys and play. Like I love playing D, to your point. Like everything's in front of you. You can see so much more of the ice, right? You can pace yourself. You can time things. But from a goalie, they even have another perspective, a step farther back, right? They see everything, right? Even their D-men in front of them. So when goalies want to be curious and understand the game, like they can totally be captains back there, right? And understanding where people are going to be. And from the goalie perspective now, I find that's a really interesting factor, because me as a player, I think that considered my skill level and playing at 31 and everything else, but like my ability to anticipate where the puck was going to go was probably better than most goalies having played, right? I see the third guy high. I see the guy going back door. I understand that they're going to probably try and get there, so you can anticipate that movement. And I do watch for that now. Like when I'm scouting goalies, my middle boy's a goalie, so I really enjoy when he's anticipating that play and he's tracking that puck and he's getting to that open guy that maybe the defenseman doesn't even know is there, but he knows is there. Like that's a massive advantage for those tenders.
Yeah, that's cool. So your middle boy's a goalie, hey?
Yeah, he's a goalie.
Oh. Yeah, goalie. That's a lot of stress being a goalie parent.
It's a way different level of parenting, that's for sure.
Yeah,
my wife loses her mind. It's so funny. Like I feel that I'm pretty balanced in there. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously they have a bad day. It's way different than your right wing son having a bad day. You know, but the beautiful part of it is when they have good days. Like that's a really fun position when you're rolling too. You know.
Yeah.
Totally impacts the game. Just want to take a short break to give a shout out to everyone who has been giving me a shout out. Totally appreciate all the DMs and all the comments, text messages or otherwise emails of you all appreciating the podcast and appreciating the episodes and the work I do on social media to put out those clips and to share all the good lessons that's going on here. And I just wanted to read a couple that came in. I should do this more, but I really want to encourage you guys to participate as the best you can in whatever way that is with growing the podcast, meaning leaving a review. So I'm going to read a couple reviews here today. There's also other ways to share the podcast and to grow it, and that's just by talking about it with your friends, with your families, sharing it on your social media channels, an episode or maybe a clip that you enjoyed, or what have you. Because I mean, that's really the best referral is somebody saying, "Hey, I listened to this and I really enjoy it, and I think you'll enjoy it too, and you'll find value in it." And if you take the 30 seconds or whatever it takes to write the review and leave a 5-star review on something like an iTunes platform, that means a lot to the podcast as well. So I had a couple come in last week, which is awesome. It's titled Mental Skill Set 5 stars. Keep up the great work, pods. Your show is so refreshing to hear another side of the game that doesn't often get spoke about. And that's from Hales22 via Apple Podcasts. I think that's Mike Haley, an old teammate of mine in Spokane, that wore 22. So I'm guessing that's him. If it is, thanks so much for writing that. And if it's not him, thanks to whoever wrote that. I really appreciate the comments. Review number 2, awesome for hockey players, 5 stars. Simply put, Jason puts out awesome content for any player or parent who wants to learn. His interviews cover so many personalities, experiences, and perspectives. And that's from Chortanoff10 via Apple Podcasts in the United States. Really appreciate that, Chortanoff10. I don't recognize that name from the States, so thanks so much for tuning in down there in the U.S. Over half of my audience is actually American, which surprised me when I looked it up from a downloads perspective. So really appreciate you all listening to an old Canadian like me. I try to make this as geographicless as possible. I know that we do talk about the WHL, and we have a old WHL guest on here quite a bit, and some of my discussions are about hockey out here in the West. But I know that these decisions and these concepts of hockey apply wherever you're listening, whether you're in Massachusetts or whether you're in Maine or whether you're down in Texas, right? It doesn't really matter because you have decisions to make along the way about what avenue you want to go, and I hope you're finding value in these conversations. So thanks again for all these reviews, and thanks again for tuning in from wherever you're at. Totally appreciate the support and totally appreciate you choosing to spend time with me and my guests every week. So keep it up. Would love to read a couple more next week. If you are one of those people that have listened and haven't left a review yet, take the 30 seconds or a minute. This 5 stars, give it a thumbs up. That's all you need to do. Or you can take a couple more minutes and just write a couple lines like the people did here this week. So once again, thanks so much. Now let's get back to the episode with Micki DuPont. So let's talk about the whole Europe experience. I mean, so you end up we should cover your goal, and I mean, you've scored more than one, but like how about the NHL first goal? Let's talk about that. How did it happen? Who was it against, and what do you remember about it?
Yeah, that was cool. It was in Vancouver against Dan Kluche, and nothing crazy, just a low to high wrist shot on net. Yeah. But it was a tight game too. I think a 3-2 win. And Chuck Kobasu, he was also a rookie that year, so we both scored our first goals in the same game.
Oh, cool!
So it was pretty cool for us to do that in the same game. And then when you win, that's even more reason to celebrate, right? Like it's tough to be happy after a loss, so happy that we got the win. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's cool. What was the biggest? So in your time in the NHL and you played in the minors, and you were really productive anywhere that you went. What do you think was the biggest difference between the AHL and the NHL?
Yeah, I think the structure in the NHL is much better. Like all the players are where they're supposed to be. There's not as much running around in the AHL. In the American League, there's a lot of running around. Everybody's young. Most guys are young, and they're just running around trying to hit everybody and trying to make a difference, and sometimes don't think the game all that well. But then once you get to the NHL, everybody's playing their position, everybody's where they should be, everybody can think the game well. So it's almost an easier game in the NHL sometimes. I only got to play a few games up in the NHL, but yeah, the biggest difference for me was just I don't want to say I wasn't confident up there. Like the games I played, I was confident. Like I could play at that level. Just the size and strength of the guys in the NHL was much higher. And then just I mean, you'd relate to this with what you're doing now, but just the mental game for me. Like I always felt like whenever I was up in the NHL, I always felt like I was kind of a fill-in player until the injured guy came back or whatever it was. I never felt like I was truly part of the team. And then because of that, I never felt like I really played my best because I wasn't that comfortable and confident.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I feel, I can totally relate to that too, because that was essentially where I felt I was. You know, when I was with Florida, I didn't actually feel that because I was like one of their drafted players, got brought up. You know, it seemed like I was, part of the funnel of being there and maybe being like a long time Florida Panther. So when I did get I think I had 19 games there in my rookie season before I got traded at the deadline. I felt part of it. Like I had a role, like it was a fourth line role or a third line role. It wasn't like I was playing power play minutes, but I mean, it was just sort of like that was part of the plan, right? Like just getting comfortable first year and figuring it out and being one of the guys. And then I got traded, and then it kind of never felt like I was a part of it from that point on. And then looking back on those first 19 games, although I felt a part of it, like I didn't really like step into what that was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a complete mindset. Like, to your point, it is a mindset thing. Like it's not a skill thing. It's like, what is your approach to that opportunity, right? And what are you doing about it? Regardless of whether you're called up as a midnight scratch because somebody rolled their ankle, or whether you've earned that spot out of training camp, like what you do with that is up to you, right? And I know that I made a few missteps with that, and that is one thing that I definitely try to align players with is like make the most of whatever that opportunity is whenever you get it.
Yeah, you have to have that attitude. Like, screw it, I'm just gonna go play and show what I can do. But it's hard at times because when you're a call up, a couple of mistakes and that could be the end of your shot.
Yeah. Yeah, they just say you're not ready. That's the thing. But the other side of it is like So what if you don't try and then you get sent down because you didn't make a difference? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No,
Like
you're
it's
right.
like
Yeah.
it's like a death by 1,000 paper cuts, or maybe it's maybe you go out with a bang, right? Or maybe you don't go out at all. But like, which way would you rather go out, right? Like living big, living large, living courageously, or playing
Yeah.
timid and playing small and not showing your best? You know, like
Yeah.
it's kind of a decision, right?
Yeah. Make mistakes while you're going hard.
Yeah.
Don't be timid. Yeah.
Well, you'd rather. I mean, hopefully, no, you don't make the mistakes. But I think that would be the terms that I would prefer to go out with, right? You know, that I tried, that I gave it my best, that I played big and bold, right? And that's easier to be in the minors telling yourself that than like I chipped it in every time I got it. I didn't want the puck. You know, I didn't want to make a mistake. I made sure I was a third guy high. I played super safe. Ho hum, right? That's pretty vanilla.
Yeah. Yeah,
and that's the same thing. I think that's at any age too, right? I mean, these guys that are 9, 10, 11 forwards on a U15 team are kind of going through the same thing, right? Like the play's pretty fast for them. Like they don't get out there maybe all that often, and they're nervous. And that's the thing that I try and talk with my guys about, whether I'm coaching or whether I'm doing the off ice coaching with them, is just try and be courageous, right? Be brave, be bold.
Yeah,
it's way more fun playing that way too.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's delicate at this level, the U15 level. Like some kids, you might tell that to, and they'll take that as, okay, I got to take the puck and I got to go end to end. But that's not what we want, right?
No, yeah, and it doesn't work. Yeah, I mean, that's not what you want either. Yeah, so that is the thing that I found too. Like, thanks for bringing that up, because communication is so imperative. Like and like the granular level of it too, right? Like what does that look like to you as a player? I mean, you might be a number 5 defenseman, like playing bold and courageous as a number 5 D-man. You got to know who you are first of all, and then what does that mean to you, right? Like for you in your game, does that mean maybe stepping up and having that big hit, foot inside the blue line? Maybe that means ending the play a little earlier in the D zone, but that kid might think, oh, this means I have to go end to end. Well, no, I never wanted you to go end to end. Nobody wants you to go end to end, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, like it is an interesting recipe, because everyone's recipe is a little bit different for what that means. But that's the part that I enjoy. I get a lot of joy out of that when you can make it really be simple for them, like very clear, like 1 or 2 things that like this is what that means, and then they can go out and try and execute instead of it having to be big and bold, right?
Yeah. It comes down to communication, right? Like really simplifying what their role is and what you want from them. Yeah.
Did you have any great communicators in your coaching? In your playing history, as far as from the coaches aspect?
Yeah. Looking back, I had a lot of good coaches. I had, like I mentioned, I had Ed Dempsey, Mark Habscheid, Dean Evison. Habscheid was a real hard coach. Like he was really hard on the guys, but he made us better. Like he pushed us, but we all developed. We all got better because he pushed us so hard. Dean Evison was a great coach. I think that was his first or second year coaching, actually, because he's still doing it now in the NHL level, at the NHL level. And then in the minors, Jim Playfair was great. Obviously, he's had an NHL career coaching. Uwe Krupp, remember that name?
Yeah, sure I do.
Yeah, Uwe Krupp. So he coached me in Berlin, and he was great communicator, great storyteller. Like he could just talk for days. So he was a treat to have.
Well, you mentioned Iceberg. Now we got to go bring it up. So, Micki, for those of you listening, played, as we talked about, years and years overseas, over 1,000 games pro in total. And he had a stop in, more than one, 2 stops in Berlin. But in his first stop in Berlin, he won a championship there on my benefit, because when we were playing for Mannheim at the time, and we got to the final with the Adler and we lost to the Ice Bears, so Micki won a championship over there, and I got the bridesmaid medal. So I'd be remiss if I didn't bring that up for you there, Micki.
Yeah, no, that was a lot of fun. Yeah, Berlin was great organization. They have the same owners as the LA Kings. Mm-hmm. So they run it really professional and try to give the players exactly what they need, and great group of people there. great group of guys. We won a couple championships, so winning's fun, right?
Yeah. Big budget there too. A lot of guys were making a lot of money there, I know, and when we were playing. Mannheim had a big budget too. Like there's a few teams in that league that would run a much higher budget than other teams,
Yeah.
and Ice Bear was one. And it was fun because there was a couple times in there, I don't know how often that happened, but you guys played in that big rink, I think it almost held 19,000, and it was full more than once that I remember. It was a pretty awesome environment there to play in too.
Yeah, and it's a great city. I mean, away from the rink, it was unreal. Like when you have people come over to visit, there's so many things to show them and so many things to do, whether it's museums or restaurants, bars. Like just the culture there is amazing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy your time in Switzerland or Germany better?
You know what? Lots of people ask that, and it's hard to answer because they were both great, just very different. Like Berlin is not I wouldn't call it a beautiful city, but culturally it's amazing, right? One of the best in the world. Switzerland, we were just outside Zurich, so close to Lucerne, which if any listeners have been over there, they're beautiful, beautiful cities. So everything's clean, everything's safe, great for young families, which we had at the time. The hockey's really good. The hockey in Switzerland is the main sport. It's more popular than the soccer over there. So they put a lot of pressure on the players, and you open up the newspaper and they have, the stars of the game, and they used to call them the plums of the game. So those were you didn't want to be the plum of the game. So that would, if you were the plum in the newspaper, it was not good. And,
oh my God! So they do a 3 stars, and they also do like the worst player award.
Yeah.
Oh my!
And then a little blurb about why. Yeah,
that's hilarious. Well, I talked to Nat Domicelli there. He's the GM of. What's he the GM of now? I can't remember the team that he's the GM of, but an old Kamloops Blazer, Lugano, right?
Yeah.
I was on a call with him the other day, and he said that this year, that league's usually really good, but he said with the war this year, that a lot of the European players, meaning like the Swiss and the Finns and what have you, weren't going back to the KHL. So. So they have the league's real strong, and I guess when I don't know, you played there 16. Did they have 6 imports then at the time? Because now they have 6 imports too.
Yeah, they only had 4 back when I played.
Okay, so when I first got there, they only had 3 in that area, and then they went to 4, and now they're at 6. So he said that league is like super strong. Like it's a really strong league right now, one of the best in Europe, and they take their hockey pretty serious. So. So then you had your boys were growing up in that Swiss hockey system, or was that back in Germany now where they were growing up playing hockey?
Well, both. Like they started in Switzerland, and that was great. Like the youth program there is unbelievable. They would skate, and they do dry land at a young age too. So even from, whatever you want to call it, Timbits or over there they called it piccolo. But when you first begin playing hockey, it's a lot of skating at the beginning, and then it's, lots of small area games and things like that. And they would do dry land right after, even at the age of 5, 6, 7 years old, which I thought was great because, everybody talks about multi-sport athletes, but with the demands of each sport now, it's so hard to find time to be a multi-sport athlete, right? So having that dry land component built in for the young kids was fantastic. Like sometimes they would just go play soccer. Sometimes they would, do a bunch of plyometrics and things like that. So I thought that was really beneficial too.
Right. Yeah. Cool. So it's not necessarily them learning a sport necessarily, but because they're outside, not skating and not doing the typical hockey movements, I mean, you're kind of accomplishing the same thing is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So they played in Switzerland, and then we moved to Germany, and they played in Germany.
Can you talk about the development model there? Because I know that there's countries out there that are doing it quite a bit differently than how we're doing it here, and make the Finns, for instance, too. I was talking with Jyrki Lume on one of the alumni trips for the Maple Leafs, and he was saying that like the way they do it there, and I'm not sure if this is Switzerland or Germany as well, but like they don't even play games until like 10 years old or something, like official, like regular games like that. It's all development based. It's all like practices. It's all small area game type stuff. And then they don't separate kids either until about that age, right? Like they don't, like everyone's together doing the same thing, and which is completely opposite of what we're doing over here. And I don't know which one's better or which one's worse, but what was your experience with the youth programs there when it came to that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so they were on the ice a lot, which was great for the development, right? They would play games, but the games would be cross ice games. And like you said, everybody was together. So let's say it was U9. So all the 7, 8-year-olds would be together. And then if there was a tournament, they would just make a team, make a roster, however they wanted to do it. They would pick different guys for each tournament. So everybody got to play. So they didn't separate into team 1, team 2, team 3 like we do over here. Mm-hmm. It was more mixed, which some people disagree with, but at the young age, whatever, they're playing cross ice hockey, and you have some stronger players, some players that need work, but everybody's mixing and it's good for everybody. And then, as you get older, the stream, tightens, obviously. So my older boy, his last year in Berlin, he was in, I guess, an academy. So it was Ice Baron Junior Berlin Academy. And so I think that was their U13 team. And it's so cheap too. I mean, you pay $1,000 and everything's included. So that just keeps everybody has access to hockey, right? That's kind of the bad part about hockey now is it's so expensive. I mean, the equipment, the registration, everything, it's not accessible to a lot of people, so it's too bad.
So they're able. How were they able to subsidize it there? Do you know what their formula is?
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of government money. Like the government puts a lot of money into the youth sports, and it's run that way,
right?
As far as I know.
Yeah, that's.
I didn't ask questions.
Yeah, no, I hear you. But it's kind of now that I'm involved in what I'm involved in, and I'm seeing where can we grow this game, and how do we grow it, and how do we not make it so entitled, right? If that's a goal, I mean, I don't know. It's not a goal for everybody. Some people don't care, and I'm not saying they should or they shouldn't, but I'm curious about finding ways to level the playing field for sure. And not even mean level the playing field like everyone has to strive to be an NHLer, but like just to play good, strong development hockey and not have to, fork out $15,000 to $20,000 a year to do it, right? Like I think that should be something that we should be trying to figure out, because it happens really young, right? Like where you're putting in a lot of money to play development hockey.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the answer is. I mean, it's such a business now with the spring hockey and the academies and the camps and everything. I mean,
take one last short break here from the discussion with Micki DuPont to let you know about 2023 and the fall of 2023, where I will be offering 2 associations and academies and prep schools the ability to license the Up My Hockey suite of products. So if you are in a position, an administrator, or if you are a president or director of hockey somewhere, and if you would like to have mental fitness be a plug and play type of situation for your program, then Up My Hockey might be a solution for you. That is definitely a route that I'm taking Up My Hockey. Instead of being one and done and buy a program and you're finished, you can actually maintain licensing options for all your players and all your competitive teams over a year, 2 year, 3 year period. You'll get the updated programs. You will get coach training. You'll get leadership development. You'll also get the mindset development side. I know this is becoming a very big piece of many developmental programming scenarios, and it's also a piece that is hard to fill, whether it be locally or otherwise. So to have an online component with people that can come in and serve as a coaching aspect as well has been something that has been come to my attention from people inquiring about whether I can do this and will I do this. And that is something that will be happening in the fall of 2023. So if you are one of those programs, like I said, that would like to have mental fitness and personal development be part of your competitive program, by all means, reach out to me and we can talk about what that can look like for you next season. It's good to look ahead. It's good to look forward. And it's something that you guys can market and help with your recruiting as well to be able to serve the mental health and mental fitness of your players. The mindset development, we all know how important that is. And to have something that is a done-for-you, tailor-made scenario takes a lot of pressure off those who have to make the decisions, and also allows great content to be delivered to your members. So, yes, next year, by all means, reach out. You can reach out to me at jason@upmyhockey.com is my email, or on my website, upmyhockey.com. Now, back to the interview with Micki DuPont. You talked about your older boy, and maybe I just want to talk with you about being the hockey dad and the situation Landon's in there. I know you're coaching him this year as an 09, and I mean, last time I checked, I think he's in the top 20 in points in the prep league there, and maybe the only defenseman on the board. So obviously doing really well. How do you handle him just as your son and as this hockey playing prospect that probably has designs of wearing an NHL jersey one day?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard at times. I try to teach him, treat him like everybody else on the team. But, to be honest, he's my son. So, we drive home in the car after the games, and so you get to spend more time with him. But I think the biggest thing for me is, being through hockey for however long I played, just knowing that it's such a long road and seeing examples of kids that get burnt out and lose that passion for the game. The biggest thing for me is just making sure my kids love the game and want to show up to the rink, right? Like if they love hockey, they're going to want to come to the rink. They're going to want to put in the work and go on the ice and get better that way. So I try not to put too much pressure on them. Obviously, you talk to them about certain things like, I think you need to work on this and you're doing this well. But just very cognitive of not putting too much pressure on them. And because I know that, I'm sure you have examples of people, that just felt too much pressure and just kind of fell out of love with the game and stopped playing at a young age.
I love that, but if you could maybe expand on that, because I love the second level of the questions. Like, so what would that mean for you guys who are in that car ride? Like, what is you not putting pressure or extra pressure on him? Like, how do you go about that?
Well, like, I don't know. I mean, there's examples of, there's some parents you see the kids get in the car and the kid is frowning the whole time home, and the parents are just yelling at him. Like, I don't think that's healthy for anybody. But obviously, like I said, like, keep the kids accountable. Like if my boys are not working hard or whatever it is, like, you have to be honest with them and let them know, like, you can't continue this. You gotta turn this around. But just having fun with it, right? Like, that's the most important thing. Like, if it's not fun for them, they're not going to want to come back to practice and play. And
right.
Yeah.
How do you protect the passion? Like, that is something that I do. I mean, I think, from the mindset side, like I'm definitely a proponent and a believer that where you focus your attention, like, those things are going to grow, right? They're going to expand, and that's going to be something that becomes a habit for you. So I definitely tell my high performers, my high achievers, who are generally very critical of their games, right? Sometimes overly, that we have to be able to celebrate the good stuff. We have to take time to acknowledge what's happening well, right?
Yeah.
But I also encourage them to focus on what they love about the game, right? Like, what they love about going to practice, what they love about playing the game, when they're in the competition. So, that does grow roots, right? And they're focusing on those things, and then hopefully that's helping them grow the passion for the game. Which is also fun, to your word, right? Like, those things are fun. The things that they like make it fun, and then sometimes they can focus on trying to accomplish those things more. How do you judge the thermometer, the temperature there of your team, or maybe even your son, when it comes to that passion meter? Because throughout the course of a season, it does go up and down. How do you protect it?
Yeah. No, I mean, when we talk about projecting what the kids are going to be moving forward, that passion piece is huge, right? Like if you see kids that really play with that fire on the ice, I think those are the kids that are going to continue to get better and better and reach the higher levels. And can you teach that? Can you teach that passion or change it? I'm not sure how much you can, but like you said, the more that you can expose them to hockey, like I think that was a big thing with my kids, like just being around, being old enough that they could come to my games when I was playing and be around it and see me play, see dad play. I think that goes a long way. That kind of adds some passion for them. I hope it didn't add any pressure. I mean, I don't think it did. Like I wasn't like a Wayne Gretzky type guy, like if you're Wayne Gretzky's son, that might be a lot of pressure, but I don't think they feel pressure. And that's another thing. You never want the kids to feel pressure, like they have to succeed. And I don't think they do. I always have to be cognitive of that with my younger boy too. Like he's, like you said, he's getting a bunch of attention already, and we talk about it and then just kind of tell him like, yeah, like don't pay much attention to that. Just keep playing, having fun, getting better. Don't worry about all the junk on social media.
Yeah, I know, and there's so much of it now for them. Well, being the coach of a prep program that's, a really respected prep program in Edge, I'm friends with Jerome McGinley as well. A counterpart coach of yours there at Rink here in the Okanagan, and we're talking about passion, right? And so one of the things of why these academies work and why they draw some of the parents' attention and the scouts is, that it's definitely a hockey-centric program, right? You're on the ice a lot. You have ice almost every day. It's almost like a junior environment. I'm sure you see it amongst your own guys too. Like some maybe thrive through that thing, and some maybe it gets to be quite a bit for them, and I don't think sometimes it's not that they don't love the game, but it's just a lot. Do you have a hard time or trying to find that balance for the entire group, or what do you do when you feel like maybe they're, they can maybe use a break, but yet you have that practice time ready to go? How do you go about navigating that?
Yeah, I think that's where you add in some games, right? Like you might do some more small area games or a scrimmage type scenario, or 20-minute shootout at the end of practice. Like we're kind of going through those days right now, where the beginning of the season was super exciting, September, October, November, and now it's kind of a little bit of a lull in the schedule. We had a really big tournament here in Calgary 2 weekends ago, and then after that it was kind of like, okay, the kids were tired, kind of feeling that lull, so let's play a few small area games in practice, and then kind of ramp it back up for December, have a break right after Christmas, and then come back in January. But it's a good point you make. Like sometimes in the schedule, I mean, you can't go pedal to the metal all season, right? You have to, you're going to have valleys and highs and lows, and you got to find some time to relax and maybe have a little more fun instead of just teaching all the practices. Maybe throw in some fun practices.
Yeah, cool. Or maybe take a page out of the Swiss model there and just have them go to the gym and play some basketball or something for for a turn or whatever. I mean,
which is great.
What's that?
Like it's great. I don't know if you've ever been to Edge here, but we have the 2 hockey rinks, and we're connected to the school, so we have gymnasiums and a soccer field out back. So it's great. We do have that luxury to, if we don't want to go on the ice, we can go back in the field and play soccer or basketball, whatever it is. Yeah.
That's really that's one of my big aspirations with Up My Hockey, is like to eventually get into the space of ownership, whether it be an academy or whether it be a junior team at the end of the day. because I think that's part of the missing piece, actually, which is completely a different tangent. But like these programs run, right, and they do a great job developing, but then there's really like then they just hand them off to whoever there is to go, right? Like there's no placement, right, of in the junior A, there's no placement in major junior. And I think that'd be a really interesting piece, right? If you could actually have a team that Edge would own a team, say in Calgary, that not obviously all your players could go to, but those that were accomplished and developed enough, and they would have a place to play if they wanted. I think that's kind of cool, but my like academy would have something to do with that, though. Like something to do with, like maybe not like a whole-time sport, but there would definitely be more engagement with other things, right? Just to keep the mind fresh, keep the body fresh, hopefully keep the spirits up and the mental health. And I think that'd be a really fun thing to experiment with. That's my big dream. I've never said that publicly. So thanks, Micki, for making me announce that.
No, I think it's a good idea. I mean, a little bit off topic, but when we were talking about like the spring hockey and the specialization in sport, I think like lots of kids play spring hockey now, and I think it's a great idea to have like a spring hockey / soccer program or / whatever program. So they're doing their spring hockey, but then that whole hockey team can go play soccer twice a week as well.
Yeah,
because I find like even soccer, like our kids played soccer growing up as well as spring hockey, and it was great for them. But then it got to a point where both of them became so demanding. They were like, well, you can't play soccer if you're going to play hockey. You can't play hockey if you're going to play soccer. We need you to commit to 100% of the practices and games. So if you could have some kind of a program that kind of blended both, I think that would be a really good idea.
That's an awesome idea. I mean, I just wonder if the parents would go for it. Like I was actually before our call, I'm running three different spring things this year. So like a 2010 team, a 2011 team, and then a 2009, probably 2008 / just more development, not really a spring program. But one of the things, I mean, to your point, like my philosophy with Up My Hockey is that you should like a better well-rounded person and a better well-rounded athletes make better hockey players. Like that's kind of the foundation of where I start everything from. And because of that, like my spring program, I want players to be able to play lacrosse or baseball or soccer, like during my program. I'm definitely not, I don't design it so they have to be there all the time. I don't tell them they have to be there all the time, but I do set my practices up in a way that I think allows it to happen, right? So there's no weekend practices. I try and keep the games to a minimum on the weekend so they can go play their soccer or baseball games or whatever the case may be. And if practices overlap, they're allowed to pick what they want. So I try to, consciously figure out how to allow that to happen. But to your point, it might be even better just to like, don't worry about Vernon Minor soccer or whatever, right? Like, we'll do a soccer program with the hockey. There's no conflicts then. We're not going to be, obviously going to soccer tournaments, but we're going to be playing and we're going to be having fun and we're going to be with each other. And,
they're all competitive kids and having fun. Yeah.
That would be interesting. The only problem is like, how it is with anything, I guess, is there's, everyone has a different idea of what's right, and so, like the odd kid might not like soccer, and because of that, they're not going to go to your program, and So I think it comes in be different ideas there. But I did talk to who I talked to the other day, and is the director. I think it's Shawnigan Lake. That's the prep program out on Vancouver Island?
Yeah.
Right. So his Mr. Compton is his last name, and I can't remember his first name.
Yeah, Jeff.
Jeff.
Compton,
Jeff.
Yeah.
Dylan's son plays for the Vipers. Heck of a hockey player, good defenseman there. But we had a call the other day, and he was talking about being the hockey director there, and he loves the program at Shawnigan Lake. But when the season ends, hockey ends, right? Like, which isn't the case probably at Edge and at Rink. I know they keep running all the way through to the end, right? But at Shawnigan Lake, they have to pick another sport at that point. Like they have to go somewhere else. And he said that he likes that, but he's like, there's a lot of parents that don't though, right? Because they want to be doing the hockey because they think it's a full-time thing. So they battle that at that level. But I do think it's an interesting concept that they try and run there,
Yeah. I mean, for Edge, it's an advantage when we talk to families, when we recruit, like a lot of people like that. We go in, we still practice 3 times a week, and we're in the gym 3 times a week during spring, and that's all built into the program, which a lot of people like. But I do agree with, after the season, the kids, skate a couple times a week, which is great. But I would love for them to get out and play soccer, or But I mean, you know how it is too. The older you get, it's more specialized, and
Yeah.
it's more skating and gym time rather than just going playing soccer and football.
So here's one. We'll end with this maybe, just because I'm curious, and maybe it's a good one. Because your boys are now, 2 years apart, I think, in 06 and 3 years apart in 06 and in 09. The 06 is obviously a little further along. Still wants to be a hockey player. Landon's coming along. Top prospect that a lot of guys are trying to chase. Do you make them put the skates away at any point in the summer, or do they skate all the time, or what is your personal philosophy there for how to handle the summer months?
Yeah, we usually put them away for July. So we, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong. It's just kind of what we do and what, so we, again, like we would skate 3 times a week during, April, May, June. And then July, we take off. We go to Okanagan or go wherever, relax. And then August, usually 3 times a week on the ice. But I think the off-ice training is really important. Once you get to that 14, 15, 16 level, as most people know. So they're in the gym, August, skating in August, and then wrapping up for the season.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I mean, and that's essentially what we do. Like right now, my kids are younger, though. Like my oldest is an 09, my youngest is a 12. And last year I made them take, essentially when spring hockey ended, the first weekend in June there, I made them put their stuff away till August. So they had 2 months where they wasn't letting them skate. And I was not popular, by the way, with saying that. But I do think it's good. I mean, whatever, give the body a break and go experience the different things and get into the gym. Like that's the other thing I think is good about it is that you encourage them if they are wanting to be hockey players and hockey is important to them. Well, now they're not on the ice. So what are they going to do about that? Right. Are they going to go shoot pucks in the garage? Are they going to stick handle? Are they going to go to the gym or find a workout? So I like them making them get involved in it with not being on the ice. So anyways, that's kind of where my mindset is too. But again, that's tough for me to have the philosophical alignment because that also means that I'm not doing programs in July, which maybe people would want to pay for. But I'm not going to offer them because I don't think anyone should be skating in July. So,
Yeah, I mean, they're on the ice a ton during, August until June. So they need a break sometime. Yeah.
How about maybe we'll end, just allow you the space to talk about Edge because I know, you're a head coach there. And like you said, there's a recruitment aspect involved and there's a lot of choices out there for players now. What brought you to Edge and why do you think it's a good place for players to go?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good programs out there. Like we said, everybody has lots of choices. We really like Edge because I like how everything's under one roof. You have the schooling right here. You have the off-ice training right here, the rinks, everything under one roof. So it's nice and convenient that way. You're not shuttling around town. So it works well for our kids, and I feel like it's become the top league to play in at the U15, U18 levels. And then, the development is a big side of it too, right? You're on the ice more, you're with like-minded kids, pushing each other in the classroom and on the ice. Usually have really good coaching. So it's a good fit for our family, and with the model. So we're all, practices are done during the day. So weeknights are free. So it's from a family standpoint, it's been great. Like we go home and we can have dinner at the table, the whole family. So it's kind of nice that way too.
I love that aspect. Actually, I had that conversation the other day, the pros and cons of the academy versus like what we're doing AA right now, right? Which I think has been an awesome solution for us and our family and for Hudson where he's at in his development. But it's all after school, right? And like they're getting home at 9:30 at night sometimes, right? And we're running them out to 45-minute drives because it's a regional team. And I said the other day, I'm like, boy, it would be nice if when Hudson got home, like he was just home, right? Like you're not going anywhere else and you get some family time and time with the brothers and everything else. So I do think that's a real nice amenity there of the academy environment that the weekdays nights are open. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Are you planning on having Landon? Have you thought about next year for Landon yet? Or do you think he's going to be in that league again, or maybe somewhere else?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Everybody's starting to ask me that, and I don't know. Yeah, I have to play somewhere.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, there's lots of time to figure it out. But yeah, that's the age-old question, right? What is it going to be better for him to really dominate at his age level, or is it going to be better to, be challenged and maybe still make an impact at the U18 AAA level? I guess is what you're probably having to decide, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It's a conversation we'll have to have with a lot of different people. I don't want to make that decision on my own, so
right.
Try to reach out to a lot of different hockey people that know him and know the levels, and kind of make a big joint decision.
Yeah, cool. Do you plan on being a part of the coaching staff there at Edge next year again?
Yeah, with the U15 preps, yeah.
So regardless of where Landon goes, you'll still be there being the coach?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I like coaching this level. Yeah.
It's a good age group, isn't it?
Yeah. There's some tough days, right? Like they're at a funny age where they're lots of the off-ice stuff, kids get in arguments and you got to be the police sometimes and the referee, but all in all, it's a really fun age group too.
Awesome. Well, I'll let you go. We've I know you were on the bus late, and we went 90 minutes, and then that's plenty, but we could go longer, I'm sure. I mean, we didn't celebrate your career quite as much as I wanted to, but anyways, maybe it's more relevant with where we're at now and where you're at, and all that you've learned from those 18 years or whatever it was, right? Which now you're trying to pour back into the boys that you're working with. So thank you for doing what you do. By the way, I know coaching makes a massive difference for these players, and those of players like you that have the experience and they know where these players want to get to is helping them along the way. So thanks for that, and thanks for sharing all your knowledge here today with us.
No, thank you.
Thank you for sticking around to the end of episode 80. No, not 82. My goodness, it's 92. We are now 8 away from 100 episodes. That is quite, what's that called? A landmark? It's pretty cool. 100 episodes are nearing. That would be, goodness, how long are my episodes? Roughly 60 to 90 minutes. Even if they were all 60 minutes, which they're longer, that would be 6,000 minutes of recorded content. That's a long time to be in front of a microphone, something that I never thought I would have been doing, ever. So crazy that this has happened. So crazy that we have so many episodes in the book, and that really it feels like I'm kind of just getting started, because this has been now a new found initiative to go back to the roots of where Up My Hockey started, which was as a podcast, and I'm going to continue to offer these, like I said, on a weekly basis, and to really double down on the podcast, and to double down on the content and the discussions and these conversations that I think really need to happen. For me, they need to happen because they serve me very well. I'm always jacked up after I have a call, and I know that they serve you as well, the listener and the audience, because of all the messages that I'm getting and all the great reports of you enjoying and getting value from the podcast. It sounds like it leads to discussions internally within your car rides or at the dining room table or amongst beers with your friends. So I do appreciate that, and I hope that you guys are starting maybe to think a little bit outside the box, and maybe to challenge your own concept of what it means to be on this hockey journey, and maybe what development means, and maybe what an important piece mindset is or isn't to the process. So thanks again for being here till the end. Micki, if you're listening to this, or anyone that is a Micki DuPont fan, thank you for tuning in. If you're a first-time listener, I really like trying to reach out in different areas to different people, because it introduces the program and the story to new audiences. So if you are a first-time listener, you're still here, by all means, go back and check out some of your favorite people. There'll be names you recognize on my guest list, and maybe some names you won't, but I promise that there's gold in all the episodes, and the conversation's worth listening to. So once again, thanks again for being here. It's been a blast. Micki, thanks for sharing your knowledge with us. Best of luck to your boys and to your journey along the way. And to all of you out there, continue to play hard and keep your head up. Cheers.